Hey guys, how's everyone doing? This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and welcome back to Batman Be Vlogged, the vlog series where I review every episode of Batman Beyond after watching it for the first time. Today, we are looking at Episode 3, Blackout, originally aired in January 30th, 1999, written by Robert Goodman, directed by Dan Reba. And right off the bat, I don't think I have a lot to say about this episode. It's kind of a step down from Rebirth, but do not take that as a bad thing. Remember, back in my Rebirth review, I kind of said, in so many words, that Rebirth is near perfect. So going a step down from near perfect isn't all that bad. We get an interesting bit of world building in this episode. After Derek Powers took over Wayne Enterprises and merged it into Wayne Tech, the Fox family, which I believe at the time was headed by Lucius Fox Jr., well, Powers fired him and he started his own tech company, Fox Tekka. Now, at this point, both Wayne Powers and Fox Tekka are vying for a big contract for a big government job. So Powers is trying to sabotage Fox Tekka to make sure he gets it. Again, like I said, nothing too much to note. Like, the music didn't stand out all that much. If you're watching this for the first time, I want to say this. I am not musically trained. I don't have too much knowledge on music. So for me to really comment on some of the score for something, it has to really stand out, either for really good or really bad. So when I'm saying there wasn't really much to say about the music, just keep in mind that's my own ignorance of such matters and not a critique of it. The animation still looks gorgeous. I'm gonna really kind of save that because there's one specific point of the animation that I really want to talk about a little bit later. Although I'm still having problems with the color palette. Like I said, I love this futuristic sort of cyberpunk design for Gotham. The general aesthetic of cyberpunk, not specifically comparing it to the cyberpunk video game or Edge Runners anime. I want to be clear about that. But it's just the color palette itself is just kind of bland, you know? Like I said in my review of Rebirth, it's a lot of grays, a lot of blacks, and a lot of browns and beiges, and it just doesn't pop. And I think the idea is supposed to be it's so the characters can stand out better, because the characters are in a lot of that color scheme as well, but they stand out so much better than the backgrounds do. Now let's see. I didn't have a lot of notes. I didn't have much to say about the performances. Again, not a bad thing. Everyone is great. There's just nothing really stand out, like Kevin Conroy's magnificent performance in Rebirth, or that really great scene with where Will Friedle as Terry McGinnis breaks down after his dad's death. The performances are still really strong. There's just no real standout moments like that. You know, Sherman Howard as Derek Powers is still such a smarmy, punchable asshole. One thing I will note on is that Will Friedle's Batman voice improved tremendously. Like, in my review of Rebirth, I said it came out as sounding really forced, like he was trying too hard, like he was adding this gruff, growly element to it. Not like that, that's just me trying to do it. Whereas here, he just deepened his voice a little bit, and it works so much better. Where was I going with that? We're also starting to see some plot lines start to form, which I'm sure will go on throughout this series, like with what's going on with Derek Powers. I'll talk about that more once it kind of takes the forefront, because I don't really know how that's going to progress. But also we see other things, like Terry's duties as Batman starting to kind of conflict and clash with his personal life, which can kind of run the gamut of feeling overdone, because I feel like a lot of visual superhero media, even though comic books, TV, movies, kind of play on this trope a lot of, you know, our protagonist trying to find a balance between his work life and his superhero identity and his civilian identity. That's a better phrasing for it. But honestly, it's a trope that I think still works really well and hasn't really become tired yet. And I think it's absolutely brilliant for teenage heroes like Peter Parker or Terry McGinnis in this case, because, as teenagers, even more so, we have school, we have our personal life, there's homework, we might take on an after school job or something, and it just feels like, where is all the time going? We don't have enough time in the day to do this. So even though there is the aspect of that, personal life and superhero life clashing, it's playing on something very real, and I think even more strongly when it's a teenage hero. Beyond that, we actually have a new villain introduced in the series, which I imagine we're going to see a lot of because this is set in a futuristic Gotham. I know we'll get some legacy villains at some point, like in my announcement video, I remember vaguely recalling something about an episode featuring Bane, and of course the absolutely iconic Return of the Joker movie, or, the fact that we have the Jokers, a Joker-themed street gang, a motorcycle gang. But I imagine beyond those instances, because this is a futuristic setting, we are going to have to create entirely new villains. And in this one, it is a woman named Ink. Inque. And she is a corporate saboteur. One moment, it just left my mind. There we go. Voiced by Shannon Kelly. And on paper, looking at the writing, Ink is not all that interesting a character. Like, she doesn't have a personality really given to her. Thinking about it now, she doesn't really have that many lines either. It's really Kelly's performance that really establishes the character, at least at this point, and that really cool design. Like, but either when she's actively fighting or just in her sort of quote-unquote civilian identity, watch the episode for yourself to see what I mean. It's kind of hard to say. But it's, like I said, it's really Shannon Kelly's performance that brings the character on life. Because if you look at her lines and kind of look at her on paper, the way Bruce and Derek talk about her, there isn't really a lot to the character, at least at this point. That brings me also to another point I wanted to talk about, because I kind of said I wanted to save something in talking about the animation. The animation for Ink is absolutely gorgeous, and it is the standout of part of this episode, because as her name implies, she can essentially, it's not really described what her power does, so I'm trying to make up terminology for it. She can sort of transmogrify her body into a fluid, essentially, and it essentially has some of the properties of ink, hence the name. But like, the animation done on her is absolutely gorgeous. It has a great movement to it. It feels really fluid, and her fight scenes with Terry are really well done. I don't have much to say beyond that in the plot of the episode, so there are some general things I kind of want to end on, just scattered thoughts. I really like the chemistry between Kevin Conroy and Will Friedle. They're really selling this sort of partnership Bruce Wayne and Terry McGinnis have, especially for this being episode 3. I almost said episode 2 because the first episode I talked about was a two-parter, but yeah, no, it's like, and there's some really fun moments between them. Like, what's a good example? Like, after Bruce Wayne, because you also get more threads of arcs as well. Like, because it seems like with Terry in his life being Batman for him, Bruce Wayne, after being this sort of shut-in recluse, is starting to rejoin the world. Like, he shows up at Wayne Powers because he suspects that at this point, that this was the start of the episode, that Derek Powers is sabotaging Foxteca. So he kind of comes in to talk big and kind of threaten Derek, so to speak. And that's a really good scene. Like, you can just sense the animosity between Bruce and Derek. It's so good. And then as Bruce and Terry are leaving, they have this really great line exchange before the scene ends. It's like, so what are the chances I get a night off? Very unlikely. Like, and Bruce says it with a smile. It's well animated and it's a good performance. And we get more of that a little later in the episode. Like, while Terry's on patrol, he's like, So am I ever gonna get some free time? And Bruce's response is, not in this line of work. We also get a little bit more of Terry learning to be Batman, which was one of my little nitpicks about Rebirth, because it's like he displays this technological know-how of how the suit works despite never having seen it before, and nothing like that being established for Terry's character. And after that one scene where he stumbles trying to learn how the suit flies and glides, he kind of gets it. um we kind of get a little bit more of Terry learning to be Batman, because he's in their first encounter, he's kind of unprepared to face Ink, and Bruce is kind of telling him, you need to learn to think on your feet, which is essentially how he defeats Ink in this episode. I won't say how, but it's kind of cleverly done. And the one thing I will say, this episode ends with our introduction to another recurring character, a legacy character, I mean. And at this point, it seems the only member of the Bat family still around. Police Commissioner Barbara Gordon, who in this is voiced by Stockard Channing, which actually really surprised me. Like, I think the best point of reference I can make is Stockard Channing played Betty Rizzo in the movie version of Grease, but I've seen her in a lot of other things. I really like Stockard Channing, so when I saw her name in the credits as Barbara Gordon, I got immediately hyped. I'm looking forward to seeing more of her. But yeah, those are my scattered thoughts on Blackout. A really strong episode, but nothing really standing out about it. Have you seen Blackout? What are your thoughts? Please start a conversation in the comments below. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Click the bell next to subscribe to get notifications when I upload. Share the video around. All of it helps my channel grow. And in the description box below, you'll find the link to my Twitter, where you can follow me and get updates on the channel for the time being. This is Sir Jedi Sentinel, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 4.